Okay, welcome everybody. I hope you can hear us. Today's talk is about failure and lessons, and it's kind of a follow up on our talk about how we got into the industry, and we're kind of going to talk about all the mistakes we made on the way and the lessons we've learned. And same panel as last time. It is me, Dylan. Oh, Holly's on.
Sorry, is that okay?
That's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
Okay, cool.
No,
I
no,
don't.
no,
I
you're
don't
totally
have
fine.
a.
Well, we can have you go first too.
Yeah.
That'll work.
I
Oh,
don't
okay.
have. I don't have an intro for Holly. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm currently an art center student. Gonna graduate soon, but I'm currently just doing a little freelance on the side, but I'm mainly focusing on my studies now. So nice to meet you all.
Awesome. Thank you for joining
Yeah.
us. At this point, you guys know who I am. I'm sick of these intros.
We might have new people. We gotta go
Okay,
through
all
it,
right.
Dylan.
There might be new people. Okay. My name is Dylan. I'm a freelance illustrator and concept artist. I work mostly in movie posters, and I also do character design. I'm the co-founder of the Resolution Art and this Discord. And together with Chelsea Blecka is a published illustrator and VizDev artist from LA. She's currently working at DreamWorks Animation, and she's previously worked at Taiko Studios, Wild Canary Animation, and Macmillan Publishing. Chelsea started this Discord with me, and we also run the Resolution Art Studio. And Camille Rodriguez is joining us a little late, but Camille is a VizDev artist and motion designer from LA. She's currently working at Sony Pictures Animation as a VizDev artist. Previously, she's worked at Buck, Netflix Animation, and also did some matte paintings for Disney theme parks. Camille was also our student in the mentorship, so plug ourselves really quickly. Then we have Caroline Cho, once again, background designer at Titmouse. Previously worked for Shadow Machine, Jumpstart, Starburns, and Wizards of the Coast. And back again is Gregory himself, Alex Henderson, concept artist, illustrator. Alex is currently going to Art Center and interning at Riot Games. He's also done work for DreamWorks, Spin Master, and Apple. And similarly, we have Yi-Hao Shu, concept artist, illustrator. He's just graduated from Art Center, and he's currently freelancing, and he's done work for Impetus with clients including Riot Games and Tencent. Are we missing anybody? That's it, right?
I think we should also mention that I, Chelsea, will be speaking out of Dylan's microphone. So it looks like I'm muted, but we're in the same room, so we're sharing a mic.
And this is also going to be live on Twitch. So you can also watch there if you like.
I'll post the link in the LVX chat.
Cool. Thank you very much. Okay. Where do we start? I guess before we get into all the stories, I kind of want to ask you guys about, like, is there a difference, excuse me, a difference between failure and a mistake?
Ooh.
Do you consider mistakes as failure as well?
I think it
I feel like
depends.
they're kind of the same thing to me, as someone who's kind of a perfectionist.
Okay. I'm trying to clarify because, like, when we talked about having this talk, I have a hard time thinking about failure, not because I didn't fail, but it's because I don't really focus on, like, the things that happen as being a bad thing. So I don't really, like, consider anything failure, really.
Kind of like a no regrets.
But if you ask me about
mentality.
mistakes, yeah, I made a lot of mistakes. So
guess it's like it's more permanent failures, like more permanent or something, or something like a mistake.
something that I
It's a
haven't been able
one-time
to
thing.
overcome and get it over.
Huh?
Do you guys have any stories you want to share? Who wants to go
Uh,
first?
I mean, we can start with like a question, like we can go around and talk about what we think our biggest hardship throughout our art journey has been.
Okay. I don't know what. Alex, did you have anything in mind, or you were
About what?
feeling it out first? Any
Um,
hardship you want to talk about through your art journey?
yeah, I think, I've been thinking about it, and for me, it's not really like tangible, or it's kind of hard to see on the surface, right? Because
Yeah.
I think I've gotten a good amount of like jobs and kind of done well at them. So I think all my failures and like mistakes have been like my mental like state and where I've been at kind of uh like how harshly I've looked on my own work. And I think that's where a lot of the failure has like come from in my mind, or a lot of the mistakes I've made is just not um has been, since I've gone to Art Center and they have told you how to live your life there, it's like, okay, it's always a grind. It's always a grind. You should always be trying to like improve. And there's that value of, just always working really hard and possibly like killing yourself over it. That now later, after I've kind of moved on and done jobs, it's like eh, I don't want to like kind of kill myself over my work anymore, and I'm trying to create more of like balanced life, and that's where I've kind of been at the past like couple of years. But it's like I don't function well if I'm not under like pressure or like a
Mm,
terrible mental state. It's actually
mm,
kind of weird that that's how it works, but since I've practiced in that environment, it's like it's hard for me personally to um, that's what's been hard. I think the past couple of years as I've been working, it's like, okay, how do I work under not crazy pressure? And yeah, so
like
yeah, I
holding
think
yourself
that's
accountable when there's no like job or somebody telling you what to do.
exactly. Or it's like, yeah, it's just kind of weird. But I think all of my failures have been like, you know, I didn't when I took this job, I kind of let go of everything else, and it became my number one priority. And where did like all these other important things in my life, where did they go? So yeah, I think in the past that's kind of happened with like a lot of certain jobs, and yeah, so I think that's something that I'm still like trying to figure out. But yeah.
Do you have any specifics?
Oh man.
That's
Yeah,
okay
I
if you
actually
don't.
think
Oh,
that
okay.
during like my freelance uh, at DreamWorks last year, um, I had kind of created uh, a nice work life balance and really trying to kind of balance other things in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, with school, I had kind of I think a lot of it came from okay, like I've gotten a couple jobs or I've gotten some job and I feel pretty good at my where I am art wise. So I became a little bit of like there wasn't that much pressure in school to like do well. So
Mm,
I was like, I could just kind of roll with the punches, kind of not pressure myself too hard with art, and then kind of focus on other things. But
yeah.
then I got this DreamWorks job, right? So I felt like I was really doing well balancing life and art. And then I got this DreamWorks job. The second one that I got is like a second freelance job. And for some reason, like, uh, I just what was it? It just threw off my groove. Like there was this just insane, intense pressure because I was in an environment where I felt like I had to perform really well,
Mm,
and um, and it really like the pressure was back on, and it just threw me off. So, like with it came like really like bad habits and bad priorities. So,
Yeah.
I think it's kind of hard for me to say exactly what it came from, but I remember last year I just felt really bad about that time, uh, because I kind of threw everything away for this job and everything away for this art, even though I knew I probably shouldn't have taken the job because I was kind of spreading myself too thin. Um, that, yeah, I just think it was too much for my limit, and yeah, but like Art Center kind of taught me to go over my limit, and I just not I wasn't ready to do that anymore,
Did
so
you
yeah.
feel at any point, like before you went into that job, that you shouldn't have been doing it?
Yes. No, I totally
So,
did.
and you like just
Because,
ignored it, like you didn't listen to that gut feeling.
yeah, because I definitely thought that, okay, this is a DreamWorks job. This is a really good opportunity. I worked with them before. I get to build like a good rapport with them, and this is just a good opportunity all together. But
Yeah.
honestly, I think it was just because I didn't listen to my gut. The way I performed in the job kind of suffered because of it, and like every aspect of like that part of my life kind of suffered for it too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot, and it's kind of hard to like kind of keep yourself in check to make sure you're doing things for the right reasons. And
Yeah.
like similar to what you're saying, I always feel like every time I try to do something, go after something for a different like reason that is external, it kind of comes back to bite you in the butt a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you want to ask Holly, since I don't think she'll be here the entire hour?
Okay, sure, Holly.
Yeah, Holly, what up?
Do you have
Yes.
any stories you want to share with us?
Um, I'm still searching. I'm on the job hunt for like an entry level job, but I think in terms of like failures or hardships that have come my way, I think um I think I'd agree with Alex. It's more like a mental state because I feel that personally I struggle a lot with like imposter syndrome. I feel like I definitely like sometimes I feel like I don't belong or that maybe like my self-worth is more like attached to the art I do. Um, and sometimes I feel that um, because Art Center works you so hard and you don't kind of you don't really have any free time to think about like your health, your mental health, or your physical health. You just kind of get like stuck in a hole of like I need to grind and work hard, and the more I grind, the better I'll be. Like not just as an artist, but like as a person. So
Yeah.
I kind of find it hard to detach myself from my artwork. But I feel that lately, because I've been like exercising more and I've been like doing things outside of art, I feel like that definitely helps kind of like fix my mental attitude. Um, but yeah, I feel like at the end of the day, at least most of the artists or yeah, most of the artists I've talked to, I don't I don't feel like that imposter syndrome goes away. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's like even like the friends I know who like have like Alex who worked at Riot or like people who are working at Disney right now. I feel like they all have a sense of um like what am I doing here? Like do I belong here? Is my art good
Yeah.
enough? Um, but yeah, I feel like that's just a part of the process. And you just kind of have to have a healthy balance of like grinding but also like finding your self-worth like just like outside of art, just like as yourself. But yeah, I'm still dealing with that right now, but it's on a like a healthy road.
It probably feels like it's like a tunnel vision thing. When you're only focused on that one thing, it kind of becomes your world.
Right, yeah.
And
And
when
I
it's
feel
not
like
going well, then you're not feeling well.
yeah, definitely. I feel like even in periods of time when I've like grinded too hard, and like a major project for like a client comes up, I'm just so burnt out that I should be putting a lot more effort into it, but I just like I feel like I can't because I feel like I've put everything into it and I've just I don't know, I just can't anymore, you know. Um, but yeah, I feel like finding a healthy balance is definitely a must. You have to like find as an artist. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good advice because I think everybody has their own um, thing that works for them. Like everyone has a different tolerance level for how much they can handle, I think. At least that's kind of what I've experienced.
That's been something that we've talked a lot about too, because when it comes to the community, like the art community, and especially more specifically about the educational side, about like learning and training and how to get better. And there's like kind of a clashing philosophy about like working hard, but also, you know, be mindful about how much you work and don't work so hard. And it's like they're almost completely opposite, right? And
Really hard.
Yeah.
yeah, what we've realized is like it's different for everybody, you know, like we can't, there isn't really an answer that works for everyone. And just because something works for you, it doesn't mean it's going to work for the next person. Like everybody's different, everybody learn at a different speed, everybody starts at a different place, you know. Like I know people that like never really considered doing art until they're like in their late 20s and they just started, and then they're like feeling bad about how everybody's so much better. And it's like some other people have decades and decades of experience over you, and you're gonna have to do something different than what they're doing, right? Because like
Right.
their journey is not going to fit your journey. But that's not to say that there
Yeah.
isn't anything you can learn from them either. But just being more mindful about what works for you and why you're doing the things you're doing. Like I think that's a big thing. A lot of people don't really ask why, they just kind of do things.
Yeah, I think Camille mentioned it last yesterday too, but I think it also depends what stage you are in life and like how hard you should grind. Like especially if you're maybe in the like beginning stages of your artist journey. I think it is healthier or not healthier, but maybe you should grind harder to get where you want to be. But I think yeah, I think when you start to feel yourself decline, like I think maybe that's the period where you should kind of step back and like take a break and take some time for yourself. But yeah, I do agree that like finding some kind of balance, no matter I guess what stage you are, is like a healthier option, especially for your mental and your physical health, like in the long run, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing that I personally find myself falling into, it's like if I'm not careful, I can get too invested in my art and like what I do. And it's easy to do that because I feel like for me, I get really ambitious and I want to do all these things. So it's like if for me getting super invested, it's really it gets a lot of stuff done for me, but it can become really toxic and like my identity and my art can become confused. So then
Yeah.
like if I'm all submerged in art and that's all that I am, if the art doesn't turn out well, then that hurts my identity, and that's not good for me, personally. So, like I feel like I've had to kind of toe that line, and take steps back when I get too invested and like too ambitious, you know. So
Mhm.
anyway, sorry, had a thought. So
No worries. I totally agree with you. Um, I'm so sorry. I think I'm gonna have to leave now.
That's okay.
Oh, you're
That's,
good.
yeah, thank you
Yeah,
for
that's why we had you
Thanks for
talk
dropping
having me,
first.
in.
guys.
Bye,
Yeah, thank you for
Holly.
bye,
talking.
Holly.
Bye.
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 Hey, Ollie.
Bye,
Oh yeah,
guys.
Moish is here now. Holly's been replaced
Tag teaming.
by Moish.
Hey.
Big shoes to fill. Welcome, Moish.
Thank you, thank you. How's everybody doing?
Pretty good,
Pretty
good.
good.
Any answering questions here?
No, we're talking about. Oh, failures and the lessons we've learned.
Ray, there was
Yeah,
a
Ray-
question in the chat. Ray
Oh.
Cock, that's my, she's a really good friend of mine. She asks, after making mistakes, how do you find the motivation to keep going?
Oh man, it really depends on
Kind of depends on who you are.
yeah, and what
Like
kind
your
of mistakes are we talking
personality.
about?
Yeah. It depends on the mistake, I think. Like how
Yeah.
big it is and what
Right.
it takes to keep going from there.
I think it also depends on how bad you want it.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, like if you have a mistake in work and you feel like I guess that could be a good segue for me if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Please.
So I was going through the questions earlier and I'll come back to this point, but I just want to say I think my very first and biggest mistake is not being focused in school.
Oh.
I made that
I
mistake
can,
too.
yeah, I can relate to that.
Man.
This is something I think that, especially for me, while I was in school, I felt like, you know, you're young, you're having a good time, you feel like you have so much time ahead of you, and everything, all the responsibilities of life will just be taken care of later.
Yeah.
And that was definitely my thinking. I was like, well, you know, I just want to try everything. And I also, I talked about this yesterday, that I didn't have like the most clear track in my school. I didn't really
Yeah.
have a department, so I was given the freedom to do whatever I wanted. So, you know, a lot of us like to talk about how our schools failed us, but we have to take responsibility for our own mistakes in that as well.
Yes.
Yes.
You know,
Preach.
like I should have probably been going to the gym more often instead of, you know, whatever else I was doing. But at the end of the day, that one mistake I think really painted the picture for the rest of my career. You know, like all of the windy roads and random jobs that I had, I personally feel like it's from that one mistake.
Yeah.
If I, you know, and you just don't know what you don't know. And I think that earlier we were talking about the difference between mistakes and failures. That's a mistake, but it's a symptom that will feed the failures later, right?
Yeah, if you don't deal with it or learn from it, then it's
Exactly. It's a huge
Yeah.
mistake to avoid responsibility for your own personal life and your professional journey. You know, especially if you're in an art school, let's say you're in a really good art school, you might feel like, cool, this is going to be a made to order situation. I'm going to get a job right after this because that's all the stories I hear. That may not be the case, depending on your attitude and the work that you put in during that time.
yeah.
When you're in school, you should be doing all that you can to completely focus on that because you're never going to have that time in your life again, not without immense sacrifice. So that would be my point about burnout really quick. Like burnout in school while you have the energy, because now in my 30s, like I cannot do all-nighters. I just I cannot do
Oh
it.
my God,
I
yes.
refuse to do it. And if I have to do it, like if I don't sleep one night a week at this point, the rest of my week is screwed. Like I'm playing
Yeah.
catch up. I feel like now I'm paying for all of the sleep debt that I accrued in my 20s. But because of where I am, I don't regret it.
Yeah, they say when you're in your 20s, you spend your 20s grinding,
Mhm.
and then your 30s like actually starting your business.
Yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, your 20s is your time to make all those mistakes, right? So that when you are more responsible for your personal life, for your family, like maybe some of you want to have a family, maybe some of you want to buy a house, you want to do like real life things. Those are actually things you should start thinking about early, and how all of your decisions will affect that. And I didn't think about any of that. I just felt like I could deal with it as it came.
It's hard because
So-
a lot of us were not told these things.
No.
100%, 100%. I mean, some of it I think is a fault of education, but some of it is common sense, right? Like, especially for people like me that I didn't have, you know, endless money to pay for school. All of my
Right.
school is on me. When I decided to go to grad school, that was personal loans that I took out because I wanted to invest in myself. And I'm still paying for that, probably for the rest of my life. but,
God.
but it is what it is. And I think that going back to my first point, if I had just grinded and did the right things as an undergrad, I would have probably cut my personal debt in half.
Yeah.
So that's a big mistake that I made. But at the same time, all of that learning and all of that failure feeds into the person that you become, right? How you're going to deal with it. I think that if you, like for me personally, having all that debt and like personal family things that I had no support really. Like when I went to grad school, that was all on me. I had to support myself entirely.
Wow.
And I was in a new place that I had never been before. I moved to New York from California. So I had a lot of pressure and there was no choice but to grind. Like I had no choice. Like I had a plan to get to where I wanted to be. And I had enough soul-sucking jobs at that point that there was no option but to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I remember the last job I had that was a desk job. It was like a receptionist job at a spa. It was like the first job that I got in New York because I just needed something to, you know, pay the bills while I was in school. I literally was completely focused on getting a job. Like I got that job 4 days after landing in New York. I was like, this is not going to be an issue. I'm going to take care of this. Mm-hmm. But I hated that job so much. And the only thing that got me through it was like, this is not forever, you know? I'm going to make a promise to myself. This is the last job that I have like this ever. Like after this, I'm only going to take work that I really want to do. And so having that kind of motivation, I think, came from those previous mistakes. So to answer that question before, coming back for a full circle, it just depends how bad you want the thing that you feel like you had made a mistake in. You know, and that's really going to push you forward. And I also had like personal things, like don't want to go too deep in this because I will get emotional.
Don't cry. No.
But I think it's important because real life things happen, right? Like when I was in school, my mom got really sick and, you know, kind of changed the whole situation for school. It was like my junior year of art school. And I was like messing around, having a good time. And all of a sudden things got very real. And, you know, I had to deal with that, took a year off school. I graduated, she got to see me graduate. She passed away shortly after. So at that point, I realized there's kind of like two different kinds of people in the world. You know, like when you have like a completely heartbreaking personal situation, one type of person will go into a hole and hide forever, which is completely valid. Another type of person will push it down real deep and then just keep working. Mm-hmm. And that was me. So that was part of the reason why I went to New York, because I needed to just get away from everything that reminded me of what had just happened. And I needed to really focus all of my efforts on succeeding because of my mother. Like I wanted everything that I have done since then is for her. So that was my motivation. That, you know, never left me, still doesn't leave me. Everything I think about, like, this is all because she was my biggest fan growing up. Yeah. Always supported me. So both of my parents were. I was very lucky in that respect. My parents were very supportive of my interest in art.
That's huge too.
I think it's incredible that I had that experience, and I feel really bad for people that don't have supportive parents because I just can't imagine what that's like. But yeah, I mean, I think you just have to dig deep in yourself if you are doubting whether or not you want to move forward. What are you actually doing it for?
That's kind of what Alex was talking about, like doing it for the right reason, not because.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then just to jump forward a little bit, professional failure, like, you know, after all of the grinding and everything that I went through of working super hard to get, you know, an industry job, like, I just want to make it very clear for everybody here, like, you may feel like this is never going to happen. And I know exactly how you feel. I am 33 fucking years old, okay? I just got, like, after having so many jobs that I just took, just whatever scrap jobs that I could get. And some of them were cool. Like, I was able to work up to the art director level in motion graphics. I had chosen that industry earlier on. I talked about this before because I thought that I could never get into animation. But I got to that level and I still hated it. And I was like, well, I have a fancy title now. That's cool, right? But it really just meant that I was still working as a normal motion designer, but I had more meetings. So, you know, I felt like, all right, if I'm gonna have to work this hard, it might as well be something that I love. So in around 2016, 2017, I decided to completely invest in myself after having some success, at least marginal success, working professionally. I was able to finally fully invest in myself and pursue animation by taking classes and online classes like digital art and everything. I'm pretty much self-taught because I didn't even learn that. Like my art school failed me so hard, I didn't even learn how to digital paint there. So, you know, even after all of that, my very first job that I got in this industry was like a year ago. Okay, so it's been a long road for me.
Yeah.
And I remember wanting it so bad and being so nervous. Like the first job, I think Alex touched on this a little bit. I was so nervous, like every day. You just like being watched every day for the first time by these professionals that have seen artists that are so much better than me, and trying to just fill those shoes. And I wasn't ready. I did really well the first week of that job, thankfully, because it was like a test period that they were, you know, kind of just feeling me out because there was no art test prior to that. They were just hiring people on to give them a chance. And I was very lucky.
And then,
Yeah, so within the first week, they were like, cool, we're going to extend your contract for the rest of the project. And I was like, great. But my work plummeted after that. Like I still did a good job, but it was like, I was just not prepared. I was doing like matte paintings for this Disney show, and I was so completely unprepared and unaware of pipeline things. I didn't understand what I was supposed to be doing. Like I also made the mistake of not talking to my art director every day. I think in your first job, it's very important to communicate early.
Yeah.
The way
ask questions early and often, because like what I ended up doing is I would just work in my own head for 2 days and then run something by him, and he would be like, basically, what is this?
I've definitely done that.
Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah.
I always make
That's
sure
a
that I
normal
just have
mistake.
notes. Yeah.
Exactly. That's a huge mistake. And, you know, I went through the whole thing. I ended up with all of my work being approved, but I think I had 5 paintings on my plate. I only got through 3 of that contract. So I'm really proud of that project, and I'm excited for it to come out, but I consider that job entirely a failure because I wasn't really ready to perform to the level that they needed. But at the same time, that failure fed into the rest of my decisions from then going forward, and I learned so much about what was actually expected of me in this role so that I wouldn't make those mistakes again.
Yeah.
And I think it's also important to mention, like, we're talking about failures and the things we did to, you know, that we probably could have avoided, but you cannot ever avoid failure. You're gonna fail. That's it. You might as well accept that now. And just prepare
it's part of it.
Yeah, just prepare yourself for how you're going to deal with that. You know, like really think about how bad you want it and how much you can do to prepare for avoiding it, obviously. But if you don't, you know, just keep in mind that it's not the end. Like I really thought that the industry was so small, these people were never going to hire me, and I'm going to be blacklisted from any other job. But you know, it's not like that. Like I still was able to make good relationships there, and you know, build a network. And shortly after, I met Dylan and Chelsea, and I was able to get my work to another level and learn more about the professional skills that could carry me to the next job. So yeah, I just think it's when we're talking about these things about art, it's not just about getting your work right; it's also about getting your mind right.
Yeah.
I think that's very important.
Yeah, I went for a while. If you guys want to jump in.
No, that was
no, that was so inspiring.
Keep going,
Camille.
keep going.
Yeah, and I want to mention too that this panel was Camille's idea, and we all thought it was a great idea, and we all wanted to talk about it. So
the reason I have a hard time is like it's hard to just pick a story. There's so many things that went on.
Yeah, I'm like sorting through it right now. There's so many.
Like I'm hearing Camille's story, and it's like a lot of this I went through, you know. And
Yeah, I
just,
connect with your story quite a bit.
I've
on
erased a lot of it
levels.
from my memory, probably because it was
Yeah.
so like traumatic that I just don't
Yeah,
want to deal with
yeah.
it again, you know.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
working with Camille at work, where she didn't talk enough with her art director and spent a lot of time drawing the wrong thing. That was me, like my first week at my first animation job. I'm pretty good about myself.
Yeah, we did that a lot, and like on exactly that thing, I've been on the opposite end of like having to give somebody an assignment, and they didn't know what they were doing, and they never asked any question, and like, you know, days and days goes by, and then they showed up with something completely off than what we wanted him to do, right? And you don't want to be that person. Like, just ask your question. And like, don't be afraid, because I know like the reason we don't do that is because we don't want to come off as not knowing what we're doing.
Right.
But that's not why you're there. The job
Right, but
is not to pretend like you know what you're doing. That's not the job. The job is to fix somebody else's problem. And if you
And the
don't
longer
even
you-
know what you're doing, yeah. Go ahead.
The longer
Camille.
you spend, the more obvious it becomes.
Yeah.
Right? Like you think that you are faking it, but you're not. Like they see right through you, and it's like,
Oh,
they
yeah.
know where you came from. They have your resume. You know, you can't lie about your resume anymore. We have the internet, right? They can easily check up. So that's really just about ego, and I think that that's something that you got to try and keep in check as early as you can. I know it's hard because our art is ourselves, right? It's a very emotional pursuit. It's very personal. So when you're in a professional position for the first time, it's very difficult to separate yourself from that. But you know, I still, like I said, I still consider that job both a success and a failure because I learned so much from it. But yeah, I just think it's important to talk about this stuff because we see all these artists that are flying high, and it seems like they just have never done anything wrong.
Yep.
And that's not the case. I guarantee you, it's not the case.
I guess I should go next on my stuff.
Sure.
Go for it,
very-
Caroline.
I'm like, thinking about my whole life now, of like everything that went wrong. I'm getting nervous.
So I guess this is a mistake that I made mostly earlier in my career. I was still trying to break into games. I was basically trying to network with people, you know, the way that everyone does.
Yep.
Yeah. The thing is that my work was not, I mean, I was actually able to sort of like network with a lot of people, but I was going about it the wrong way. Like, it was at GDC, you know, and like you do the business card exchange and then you like email them afterwards being like, hey, I remember you from probably like X panel, like let's keep in touch or whatever. But the thing is like my work back then wasn't really that good, and I kind of was just approaching people the wrong way too. I feel like I was like, I guess I was like kind of using them like stepping stones, which you absolutely should not do. I think everyone just starts out that way because they don't know any better. And the advice about like looking up to like it's about networking is like you shouldn't be looking at like I guess like people above you, right? Like your art heroes or whatever. You should be making friends with your peers more than like focusing on like that cool art director that you've always idolized is 100% true. Because like you want the relationship to be more equal in a way, and you don't want to be putting that other person up on a pedestal.
Yeah.
And giving them these like putting these unrealistic expectations on them, either in terms of like the time that they're able to give you, or like job recommendations or advice or whatever. Like I don't think, yeah, like they're just honestly like when I think back on like some of the stuff that I did when I was like first starting out, it makes me cringe really bad. So
Yeah.
focus on the people around you, because when you're like failing a lot while trying to get that art job, it's not really the people above you that are gonna be that much of an emotional like support for when you fail. It's like the people around you, I guess.
Your peers, yeah.
Yeah, it's like I've taken a lot of art tests. I've also had a lot of interviews. I didn't pass when I got my first job. My first interview for like an animation job was essentially the like Chelsea's interview for
For a wild canary.
I still find that it's so funny.
I know. It shows how small the industry is. It really does.
Yeah. I guess one thing that I always did whenever I didn't get a job, I said this in the panel yesterday, but it was just like feedback and can I stay in touch with portfolio updates? And I find that I generally get a pretty positive response to that because I basically do whatever I can to make it a learning experience. And then, not long after that, I had 2 interviews with DreamWorks Animation TV for their visual development apprentice position. And I honestly thought that I had it I had a really good shot at it because I had I basically was interviewing for like 2 different apprentice positions for 2 different shows. That did not work out either. I think what ended up happening was like one of them, I think thought someone else was a better fit. The other one, they like no longer have the budget for like the training position. So that's like another thing that kind of like failed. And then I guess another thing that happened, and this was kind of related to what Alex was saying about like spreading himself too thin, which was what I ended up doing later that summer. I think this was all in the same year, but basically I was taking an art class with King Lee, and I was also working like maybe 29 hours a week at Jumpstart Games. And then I got the art test for Amphibia, but I ended up spending like a shit ton of time on. And then I think Bren was there not Bren, Michelle was there for all of that. Yeah, it was horrifying. And then not long, like I said, the day after I turned in the test, or the same day I turned in the test, actually within 10 minutes of turning in the test, then another studio contacted me for another art test. So I did that too.
Oh,
and
wow.
I didn't, like after I was already exhausted, I even took a day off work. Like I used a sick day from work to finish that Amphibia art test. And I didn't pass either of the tests. So basically how I felt then was really bad because I spent all that time on both of those tests. I was neglecting my homework for Kang's class to focus on the tests. So at the end of all that, I kind of felt like, all right, well, I failed both the tests, and I'm also not even doing that well in Kang's class either. So I basically like.
And you took time off work.
Yeah, and I took time off work. Yeah, I pretended I was feeling sick that day.
So you lost money as well.
Oh, I actually don't think I lost money because apparently there's a rule that you're allowed 2 sick days in California, but
which is crazy. 2 sick days.
That's it.
Let's not get into that.
2 paid sick days in California, but anyway, it was. I also think I probably hurt my wrist in the process too. It's like I was doing all this on like an Intuos, and I guess later on I was like after even more art tests and stuff, like I was talking to like some other artists I look up to. His name's Sherwin. He's a background painter from animation, but he used to be my teacher. And so I was kind of asking him, like, how do you keep going with, like, all these rejections, right? And, like, all these tests. I think at the point that I was asking him, I was like, I've taken, like, so many art tests at this point. When do you finally in, or like I asked like aren't I gonna like run out of chances? And
Yeah.
he said that you don't really, like, you just gotta keep on knocking on all the doors until someone opens it
Mhm.
eventually. So that kind of helped me. I think just thinking about that, like, kind of helped me get through all of it. It's because, like, yeah, there's basically an infinite number of doors to knock on, you know? So you can kind of just keep going until something happens.
It's true. Even when you get jobs, it's always surprising when you get another job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we all feel like that.
Yeah, definitely.
I think because we've been conditioned from like when there wasn't any job.
I mean, also, like, I don't, like, we have a job channel in here for anybody that is a Luna role and above. Like, we post job postings, and I feel like I've been conditioned to just look for jobs, like, even after I'm full-time employed now, but like, I'm still like, oh, a job here, a job there, and I posted in that channel because I'm like, I need to get it out or something.
I mean, that's the same thing that Alex said earlier too, when like the job came up and he took it without like realizing that he really shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah. Oh, that's one of my
But
lessons
we did that
too.
because it was like we were afraid of not getting
It's
the next job.
famine mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was why I think like sometime last year I took on a freelance gig while still working for Shadow Machine, and then I also was like doing this limited animation mentorship that had homework too. Just because I was like, I need a job, man.
Well, I want to quickly say also about spreading yourself too thin. I think it's important to be strategic about the things that you're putting on your plate. You know, like for me personally, if a job comes up that just sounds so cool and exciting, I have to take it. Like I can give you a specific example. Once I started to be more selective, like in that way, not that long ago, I was pretty stacked with freelance work. You know, this is before I got my Sony job. I was still doing freelance motion stuff and taking classes, like always taking classes. I think that's also important. When you finish school, you're not done learning. You have to completely immerse yourself in this, probably for the rest of your life, especially to stay marketable the way that things are going now. But a friend of ours, a mutual friend, Jenny Yu, she posted a job for like a personal passion project, and I was already so stacked, but I was like, she's amazing, I would love to work with her, and this sounds awesome. It was like for a manga project, and I had always wanted to work in comics too. So I just, on a whim, just threw up my portfolio and wrote her saying, that I was interested. She ended up picking me, and I had like a mini panic attack because I had no time. But I was like, well, this just sounds so awesome. Like, I think that part of the thing that kept me going in that time was because it was so fulfilling. Like, I think that when you find work that is so fulfilling and you love doing it, it doesn't matter that you're not getting enough sleep. It doesn't matter. Also, it's not going to be forever. Like, there's a set amount of time for these things. There's a set amount of time for these things so that you can figure out how much, you can actually handle. And that's only based on experience. But that job, she ended up referring me for a Netflix show. And then from there, now I had a Netflix credit. I'm pretty sure that helped me get the Sony job. Right. So like when you follow your gut and doing things that you just like, I didn't care about the money, to be honest. Like, don't tell Jenny, but I would have done it for free. Like, it was just like something that I was so excited to do. And I think that if you really want to be an artist and you're having trouble figuring out whether or not this is something you want to do, maybe you don't do it. Because like personally for me, I can't imagine doing anything else. Like, I get anxiety if I spend too long away from my art. Part of it is the famine mentality. You should always be working, but also like I just feel personally, emotionally, like void if I'm not doing art. So if you feel that way, if you like stay up at night thinking about paintings you want to do, like then that's all the motivation you need.
True.
Damn, Camille, it's so real. I was like, every time Camille speaks, I'm like, wait, that's me.
It's very relatable. Yeah.
Had like a lot of coffee today, like literally 6 shots of espresso.
Oh no.
Oh my god.
See, I'm the opposite. I haven't had any caffeine today. I think I sound like that.
So yeah, I mean, just like with burnout, like just make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. You know, like if you're burning yourself out, just taking because you feel like you have to, and you're not getting anything out of it emotionally. It's like a relationship. You know, it's like being in a bad relationship. Like, what are you doing? Like, just
Yeah.
Yeah.
get out of there.
Yeah, nowadays, when I get stuff like this, I think about the project. And like, is this worth it to me? Like, is this project interesting enough to be spent a limited amount of free time on? I think it's really important to keep that in mind. Otherwise, what can sometimes end up happening is you'll take a project you're not that excited about or might not pay that well, and then later on, someone else contacts you about a project that's pays better or is cooler, and then you can't take it. You actually
Yeah.
because
I've had
you
that happen.
Yeah,
committed to the
yeah,
project
right.
Yeah,
you
it's
cared that much
frustrating.
about.
I feel like that's unavoidable too.
Yeah, it is kind of unavoidable,
Because
and
like
especially
if you
in
need
the-
work, you need work.
Yeah,
So-
in the beginning, you don't know if there's gonna be another one, and or for how long, like until the next one comes around. But now that you know, right?
Mhm.
And it's like Camille said, like you're not gonna be able to like see all the answers before they happen. Like mistakes are going to happen. You just kind of have to learn how to adapt and learn from them.
What are your mistakes, Dylan?
I wrote down some stuff, and it's exactly the same thing everybody else had said. So I don't even know if I should talk about them. Like these are all the same problems.
I have like 4 bullet points.
Like I wrote down
and
like
2
okay,
of
I'll
them
read them to you. Like
have been
I
talked
regretted not working on my portfolio sooner when I was in school. Like we just talked about this,
Yeah.
right? Like wasting time, not doing the things I was supposed to be doing. And then I wrote down doing too many things at the same time. Like we just talked about this,
overworking.
right? And I have like, okay, this one's kind of different, but in the beginning when I started getting work and I got the next job and I have to leave the previous job or like say no to another job, I kind of like ghosted them a little bit. I kind of like cold shoulder and just I acted very cold, and I'm just like, sorry, I can't do it or whatever. And like, I regretted not being nicer and keeping that contact open. And
Yeah.
I, at the time, I didn't know how to do it. You know, I didn't know how to just talk to them like a human being, right? I was afraid to even say that I have something else.
Yeah.
And really, all I had to do was just, yeah, sorry, like I have another job, but you know, keep me open, like keep me in mind for the next project. Like I didn't even say that. All I said was like, sorry, I can't do it. And I was afraid to tell them that I had another job, that I wanted to do more. And
Wait, why were you afraid? Like, was it something?
because I thought that I was gonna make them feel like I took something better. Because it was something better that I took. And I didn't want to tell them that I'm like, the reason I'm leaving you is because there's something else better.
Yeah.
It was
Right.
like a relationship, man.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And it's the same thing in a relationship, right? Like,
Maybe I don't love you no more. You gotta.
yeah, it's the same. I mean, like, people have the same problem with dating, right? Like, they ghost each other all the time. And it's like, all you really have to do is say it. And the reason you don't do it is because you're afraid that they're not going to take it well. But in the reality, like, people understand, especially in the professional setting, like these, you know, art directors, recruiters or whatever, like they know the field. They've been said no to a bunch of times already. Like you're not the first person that's disappointed them. Right. And like, so like, yeah, just don't worry about that kind of stuff. And I wrote down like ignoring my health. And this is something that's like, I try to tell the younger people, and of course they don't listen. Like nobody listens to this because it's always like, you know, I'm young, I can stay up all night, or I don't have to eat healthy, or I don't have to exercise. It's like, you're right. At your age, you don't have to. But when you get older, it's a problem. And they'll always say, well, I'll deal with it when I get older. Here's the problem, right? When you get older, you're used to the same habits that you've started. And it's so hard to break out of them. The problem isn't that you won't be able to do those things anymore. The problem is you won't even know how to switch to the new system because you've been doing the old way for so long. So like, if you can, like, get ahead of it, start doing the things you're supposed to be doing before it's too late, right? Like, now I have like neck problems that's like chronic. Now I'm gonna have this problem for the rest of my life, and I have to stretch every day now. I have to work out every day now because of like, I was just sitting in a bad posture doing art for like 14 hours every day. And all I really had to do was like sit up better or like, you know, like exercise in the morning. Like, I just didn't do any of those things. And I didn't sleep enough. I didn't eat well. Like, all of that I have to catch up now. And it's a similar thing to like, you know, not working on my work when I was supposed to when I was in school. Like, same thing. I wrote down a weird thing here. It might be controversial, but I regretted doing Inktober.
God, no, let's not. Let's not.
But your reasoning was not like controversial.
And I'm not saying that Inktober is bad. Here's the thing. When I did Inktober, I wasn't going to get anything from Inktober. Right? Like, the purpose of that is to like learn a new medium, be like pick up a new habit, right? About like doing something every single day and pushing yourself. Like, I've already done all of those things. And the only reason I did Inktober was that I saw a bunch of other people doing Inktober and I wanted to do it too. And like, I already know how to ink stuff. I already was doing art every single day. I already like have done a bunch of like commitment and challenges and stuff. Like, I didn't need any of this. And the only reason I had to do it was to follow a trend. And like, that's for the wrong reason, you know? And then like, this is not to say Inktober is not good for you, but like, it wasn't Inktober specifically. It's like, I followed a trend that I shouldn't have, and it didn't fit my needs. And you know what ended up happening too? Like, I burned out because I was doing so much work on top of like everything else I had going on. And then my Instagram died completely because like the content that I was posting completely flipped, right? And like all the followers went away. And then like that burnout that happened, like it was so hard to pick myself back up again. And I like didn't know how to do the things I was doing before Inktober anymore. And for a lot of people, a challenge like that, if you don't have anything else going on, sure. But like when I did that, like I was working, I was freelancing, and I like, for me, I work for multiple studios, right? And I was teaching at the same time. I was like, also like the live streams. I had so many things on my plate, and I shouldn't have been doing those things. And I only did it because everybody else was doing it. So yeah, that's something that I feel like I mean, I'm still suffering for that right now, like all of these things.
You're still suffering from Inktober?
Oh yeah. No, I mean, in a way, yeah. And now I'm learning to like only do the things that I really want to do.
But you learned a lot from that, and I think it's important to stretch yourself, especially when you're young, again, to try all these things. If you don't know until you do it.
Right.
That Instagram trend, like everybody's doing it, so I gotta do it, because if I don't, I'm gonna not be relevant and lose my followers.
And like chasing the follow count is the same thing. Like it really doesn't do anything.
Yeah, it's a
like
mistake.
You don't need the followers. Like, just
Depends
focus
on
on
who's
having
following.
good work.
The followers, I will never say they don't help, but you don't need them.
I think for how much work it takes to get there, it's not like what you get back from it is not worth it.
Yeah.
Like I've even heard like Jaw Cooper said this. Like she's like, it's like having monopoly money.
That's like the best description I've ever heard of it.
And it's
Oh
like,
my
yeah,
God.
there's all this money you can't spend. You can't do anything
Yeah.
with them. And like this is somebody who like I would say takes advantage of it quite a bit, right? Like she sells a lot of stuff online.
Yeah, Cooper's got like 300,000
Right, and even her,
followers or
like
something.
she told me like it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah. On that note, on like the big name artists, like, cause we were talking about like imposter syndrome before. Like, Aliza told me that like in the beginning, her friends had to push her to post her art online because she thought nobody would like them.
Oh my
This is
God.
so
Are you
bad.
crazy? Like Aliza Ivanova said this, like,
Yeah.
right? Like that's just in your head. That's not real.
If there's some people here that are concerned that they're not getting jobs because they don't have enough followers, don't worry about that. Like I got my industry jobs with like 1,000 followers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like,
Yeah.
or like, you know,
That doesn't mean don't post and don't have social media though. Like they want to see that you are a real person
yeah,
that's
I
doing
think-
stuff. But you don't need the
I-
followers.
yeah. Maybe
Yeah.
we can talk about for the last thing before we wrap up is how does being part of an active and serious art community help? That's one of the questions that you posted, right, Dylan?
Yeah. Wait, before we do that, can we Chelsea has a story.
Oh.
Oh,
Cool.
I mean, I don't have like a story, but I have some bullet points. You guys basically covered everything I was gonna say. The only things that I have written down really that are different. I mean, I already went over not being prepared for work after graduation. Camille touched on this. Like, I went to college. I lived in the dorms for 4 years. I had a lot of fun, and
Chelsea said, no regrets.
and I mean, it was great, but yeah, I definitely it was ignorance for me, and it was mainly just I had no knowledge of the art world and how good you had to be actually to get a job. I had no idea because I only was comparing myself to my classmates, and as we've talked about, Long Beach's program is not, you know, the most skilled all the time, but there was that. And then I mean that was when I grinded. That was a lesson I learned, that I should have been working harder in school. Grinded for 2 years, and then got my first animation job. And I'm not going to go into this fully because I have passed it, but the first animation job that I had was honestly a really toxic place, and I would say borderline abusive. And I worked at Wild Canary Animation on the Chicken Squad. I don't know if anybody's heard of that show, but the higher ups on that show were terrible to us, and I spent 5 months there kind of trying to convince myself to stay in a place that was super problematic, and honestly left me like driving home crying every day because of the way that we were all treated. And I had to tell myself, like, every day I was telling myself, like, no, I got to do this because I got to get into the industry. Like, this has to work. I have to make this work. And Caroline. And so eventually, after talking to Dylan about it, after 5 months in that position, my first job, I quit. And I kind of was like, you know what? I got this job. I'll just get another one. And I quit, and then I ended up getting a booth at the first Lightbox in person, and I hustled and got my job with Tycho Studios and then DreamWorks Feature. So that was a big lesson in like learning how to deal with your art director, learning how to deal with people, and I was just so naive, and definitely realized that it's not about like the studio that you work at, it's about the people. Another thing I've got written down, so after I got that job, I started overworking myself, which you guys covered. In 2020, last year, I was working full-time on The Bad Guys. As Camille said, I also worked with Jenny Yu, my friend, and I did it because it was an opportunity that I was like, I want to work with Jenny because she's probably a really great art director, and I didn't want to pass it up, so I freelanced on top of full time. And then on top of that, I'm dumb and I decided to do plain April. So I was literally never not painting. So that was a really like hard, I don't know, I think that lasted like 6 months at least or something like that. And I kind of realized like I didn't know what burnout was until that happened. Like I had always been like, oh, I'm burned out, but like no, I really was burned out after full time and freelance, and then the plein air stuff. But there was that, and then this was a big one for me. I began to appreciate being the worst artist in the room on my team, and that was something that was really difficult to deal with. Like, so I was hired at DreamWorks Feature, and this is my first, I'm actually going to be off the movie really soon, but this was my first movie that I had ever worked on, and I got thrown into a team that was just so good. And it was the feature department, it was a lot of veterans, a lot of people that I had looked up to for years that I was now working directly with and under. And I don't know if it's my imposter syndrome talking, but I definitely felt like I was one of the lower level people, and that was hard to deal with. But at the same time, I started to really take advantage of it. I was like, I'm going to learn from this. And, every day I'm going to work and I'm seeing like all this amazing artwork. And I don't know if you guys know, but I worked with Angela Sun and met her. I'd met her before, but both of us were on the Viz Dev team for Bad Guys, and like made good friends with her. And she's amazing. Like getting to see like I got to go on the server, look at her PSD files, like like that was super helpful. Like just learning so much from the people around me was a huge lesson. And instead of thinking of it like, oh, like, I'm not as good as these people, thinking of it like, I'm going to learn from these people. So that was what I have written down.
Can we talk about the burnout thing real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because we've all kind of talked about this, of like spreading ourselves thin and doing too many things at the same time and working too hard and burning out. Like, can we define like what is too much? Because I also know a lot of artists. Like this is we touched on this before about like the work hard mentality versus like not work hard and taking care of yourself, like in your mental health. But like some artists are not working enough, and a lot of artists are working too hard. And what is the right balance? Like, how do you know?
Like you mean people are saying they're burned out, but they're not working?
I've seen people who said they burned out and I didn't see any work come out of them.
That was what I was kind of touching on, is like I had said to myself before last year, I was like, oh, I'm burned out, but like, oh my God, I didn't know what that was until last year, honestly. Like I didn't think that it could get as bad as I got.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm the best person to be like spokesperson for that, because I was in the mentality of, like Camille mentioned, like the grind. Like I was not going to stop until I got what I wanted. And I had the mentality of basically I'm going to work as hard as I can, and I'm going to work so hard that they can't say no.
Yeah, I was like that too. What if it was like a physical thing? Like, what if we define burnout as like your body hurting, your elbow or your wrist hurting?
But
Yeah,
like,
that's
what about
real.
mentally? What if you're just like completely exhausted mentally?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that too,
Actually-
right? Like I said, it's like a physical thing, right? You're not getting much sleep because you've been working so hard. Your body hurts because you've been drawing so much. And probably your brain's kind of dead, right? Because you haven't
Yeah.
really been taking any breaks. So
Mm-hmm.
you
Well,
always
yeah. I don't know. I feel like I had like you guys had that grind mentality too, but also I don't know, over time it just became too much for me. And for me personally, I'm like an extrovert, and if I'm just at home all the time, like doing art and not interacting with humans, that's like I'll just
You'll
become
get depressed over time.
I'll
I'm
get
the same way.
depressed and
Yeah.
I'll get like I won't have any energy. So like whereas but then there will become a state where if I'm grinding all the time and then I'm not then there's like this pressure to grind, and even when I hang out with people my mind isn't there. So it it's like I'm not present anywhere. So I don't have energy when I'm doing work, and then I'm not present when I do take a break. So for me, I think that if nowadays if I'm grinding too hard, I'm not creating a balance of like human interaction, and the grinding is like getting in the way of other things in my life that are important, like human interaction, like getting out and going to skate. And if that's happening, like that's bad for me personally. It didn't used to be, but it is now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you
Does any-
I
think
don't know about you guys, but yeah.
so, Alex? Like when you're saying, like when you're out, that your mind isn't there. Is that related? Is that have to do something with the idea that you feel like you have to be at home working?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if I'm grinding too much, I can get into that state of mind where I need to be grinding all the time. Like I need to be doing like I was talking about earlier. If like my identity and my art can mix, and that's bad for me. And then it's like okay, when I'm grinding too much and just trying to get to a certain level all the time, and I feel like I'm falling short or something, and there's this like fear based like uh, fear reasoning
Fear-based
behind
is
it.
huge.
Mm-hmm.
It be like it may not have started out like that, but if I'm grinding all the time, it kind of ends up becoming that for me.
Yeah.
So then like guilt. So then when I go out and hang out with people during this time, then I feel guilty, and then I'm not present there, and then I'm not doing the best work, and all of those lines could get just thrown out into the trash, and then it's all just I've like every part of life is kind of garbage. But if I kind of am strategically planning stuff and making sure that I'm giving time to other things in my life, and grinding in a way that's not just doing all art all the time. It's like doing art and making sure it's effective, and uh, like every moment of it matters. But then like setting time to, uh, you know, hang out with friends and going out to exercise or like going out to skate, like that's just always looking like it'll always be better for me personally. What that's what like a balance looks like for me. It may not look like that for everyone, but
Balance is a good.
Yeah, that's.
I like that you mentioned balance, and you like that. I like that you mentioned fear-based things, because we found out the same thing, that like if you're making decisions based on fear, it'll usually lead you into another problem.
yeah.
And like instead, you should try to really think about what you want to happen instead of doing something because you don't want something else to happen,
Yeah.
or you're afraid that you're not going to have enough money, or you're afraid what other people are going to think, or like those decisions usually are not good for you.
I did see somebody asked in the chat, what are several mistreatments we should look out for from
That's
studios
I guess the
clients?
next thing we should talk about is like
We can.
we kinda
We're
wrote
over
this
time
down
right
too,
now,
like,
but
any red flags you guys now realize that like you can see?
I have some from where I was. But,
Okay, go for it.
It's a weird red flag, but because it's not this, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad place. But the job that I was at Wild Canary, the Chicken Squad they were hiring only recent grads. So my whole Viz Dev team was made up of, I think there were like maybe 6 or 7 of us, and we were all recent grads, and we were all girls. We were all young women, and it very clearly became kind of like, because our art director was a man, and it kind of became this weird dynamic there that I'm not going to get into, but it was just uncomfortable. And
I don't think I'm mentioning this because I think it's important that I don't think they meant for that to happen, but the fact that that was the situation and there was no attempt in fixing it.
No attempt. Yeah, it was a very weird situation, and it was about 4 men that were in leadership, and it was like all girls. And I do think that, like, if you're about to get on a show or you're about to interview for a show, if you know anybody that's in that studio already or on that show already, you should ask about their experiences on it, because it sucks because, like, I mean, the guy that was my art director, he's in Lightbox. Like, they're still around. Like, these people don't go away, and all we can do is just kind of like help each other and steer clear of the situations that happen. But I guess, like, it being comprised of all young women was kind of a red flag for me. But like I said, it's almost impossible to know if that's what that even means, because there's a lot of good places that will give young people opportunities, and they're not like that. So that was one of the places, yeah, or one of the things.
Any other red flags?
Yeah, when they keep promising to convert you to full-time when you're on a contract. I got strung along for almost 2 years, and then they let me go. And they were promising to convert me to full-time, like a full-time employee the entire time.
Oh,
but,
wow.
It never happened.
You know, similar to that too is when they have you down on the sheet as like a job that's not what you're doing. Because that happened at Wild Canary, actually, where our character designer, she was written down as a storybook artist, which gets paid less than a character designer. And when she asked production about it, they were like, oh, well, you know, for technicalities, we can't put what you actually are. And she kind of just like let it slide, and like, don't let things like that slide, because that's not okay. That's why we have a union in the Animation Guild. There's a lot of like, yeah, like seeing what you guys are saying in the chat. There's a lot of like little shortcuts that the studios like to take money-wise. And honestly, I feel like it's only like a really big problem for newer artists, because once you get to where you're making like over the minimum, like well over the minimum, you don't have to really worry about that stuff anymore, because it's like you're already making more than, you know, what they have to pay you. So it's a new artist problem, I feel.
Yeah, and sometimes it's unavoidable because you do need the job and you can't say no.
I think it's also probably more relevant for people that aren't working in big studios. Like, I think most of the time in big studios, you're not going to be messed around with a lot, because they are part of a guild and, you know, there's standards. It does happen, but and when you're freelancing, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All the time, right? And I think the biggest red flag that I've learned personally is when you're talking to somebody that is not clear about pay, they're not clear about the deliverables, they're not clear about, like, if you're asking what their budget is and they're like, you know, beating around the bush about it, they probably have no money. If you're asking like how long the timeline is, and, you know, what you can expect from them on their end, like, they probably don't know what they're doing. You know, like, so it's important, like, if it sounds like a cool project, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah, when we've all had our share of like bad clients, right? Like clients that don't know what they're doing. And what I've learned over the years is, like, when you first get in contact with them, if they're not clear, if they're if they seem demanding or, you know, unprofessional, and I don't mean like inappropriate, I just mean like too comfortable, or, you know, like, let me call you instead of email, or like,
Oh my god, that happened to me once.
like these
Guys,
kind of things where it's like, if you can't just tell me what you want, you probably don't know what you want. And that means you don't have any idea of what you need me to do for you. And like, the project is just not gonna go well. And like, we've all heard the stories of like, oh, I did this and then they did this and then this didn't work out and then that didn't work out. And it's like, I think sometimes a lot of these problems can be avoided by just saying no. And
Yeah.
I know in the beginning it's hard to say no when you don't have anything, but like, let me offer you, like, let's think about, and a lot of these jobs, they pay very little too, right? Because it's all entry level. There's like a meme, right? That's like $100 client, and they're like a list of things that they ask for, and then
Yeah.
there's like $100,000 client, and they're like, cool, thanks. Like, they just like, they get it, they know what this is, because they've done this before and they're professional, right? And the thing with, I'm trying to think about how we can, I think if you are starting out, and this leads into another topic about like, you guys out there that are doing like $10 commission, $20 commissions, like, please really consider if it's really worth your time.
This is something we covered in our mentorship too.
Yeah,
We we told everyone basically like to stop doing that.
Right. And I get it if you need the money. Honestly, I do. But if you can hold out for a week or 2 weeks, think about how much time you might have that you could be working on your portfolio, working on your skills so that you can get better, so that you can get a higher paying job, right? And think about what this means. Would you rather do 10 $10 jobs or just one $100 jobs? Right? Like, 10 small job is not worth the same amount because the one job is not going to take you as long as you took to do 10 jobs, like the low level job, right? So like, always think about that and be mindful. And again, I'm saying this like, a lot of people, they need the money right away, then sure, yeah, go ahead and do it. I've done it myself, right? I'm like, there were times when I needed the money, and we talked before about how I did children's book, I did all kinds of random illustration job, and I got paid and it fed me for a while. But if you can save up, if you have a little bit of time, if you're living at home with your parents, like, really consider that maybe your portfolio is something you should be working on, rather than just rushing into these smaller jobs that don't pay anything, or and like the headache of having to go through these really needy clients that don't know what they're doing is definitely not worth your time. Like, yeah, that's something that I would try to avoid.
Yeah, that's like the thing too with clients, is if they really valued you, they would pay you a lot more than just like $10, unless it's something really small like you're doing for a friend or something. But in general, like, you can tell if someone really values your work.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, I'll this is how much I have and this is how much money I'm willing to spend. You're like, god damn, really? Okay, cool. Yeah. Another thing is I think as artists, we're really terrible at negotiating, because I used to feel like the work that I'm doing isn't worth the money that I want, and I feel bad.
Yeah.
Like, in the beginning, like, somebody would reach out to me, how much does this cost? Instead of being honest, or even if like a studio, like when they reach out and they ask me what my day rate is, I'm afraid to say like, oh, it's actually this much, because like, I think they're not going to hire me. But
which I think, like, if they're not gonna hire you, what's the solution? Like, lowering your rate or getting better? I don't know.
But yeah, but then if you lower your rate, like, it does this psychological thing with them too. Like, they'll think like, oh, it's that cheap. Well, they might be iffy about you if you're just that cheap.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
it's a hard balance.
There's a level of like respect that comes with how much you're
Yeah.
charging.
I always had like, this is my day rate, but I'd like to know what your budget is, and I can be flexible depending on what it is that you're looking for, just to leave the conversation open. Because I think one mistake that beginner artists will make is that they'll go into a job thinking like, if I don't get paid like a day rate every day, it's like I'm not taking that job. It's like, well, maybe you're just not at that level where people are willing to pay you that much. So having an option, like if somebody comes up to you, like a company comes up to you and says like, oh, what's your day rate? Like you can set that, this is my base, but just to leave the conversation open, because at the end of the day, you're talking with human beings, and if all it is, it's like, I'm $100 an hour. Like if you don't have that, then I'm not talking to you. It's like, well, shoot, I want to work with this guy.
Yeah.
So,
A trick with negotiating too, I think, or at least from what I've learned, is always, I always try to ask first, like, what's your budget?
But then they'll just be like, I don't know, what's your rate?
Yeah, and
We're
then
like, "Oh
I've
my God, why are
had
we
them
playing
come
this
back and be
game,
like, well,
man?"
what's your rate? And it's kind of this game of like, who's gonna ask first? Like, who's gonna
who shoots
tell?
first?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've always done it. Like anytime someone comes up to me for a project, I always ask for specific details, like how long the project is, what they're looking for, because then I can kind of brainstorm in my head how long it's going to take me to do the job. And then they'll ask me like, what's your rate? And then I will give them based on all the things that I've asked them, like this is how much it's going to cost. But at the same time, again, I'm open to negotiate rates, like depending on what it is that you're looking for. I usually, like with bigger clients, like they have no problem. They just say like, oh, what's your rate? Okay, cool. $350 a day. All right, sweet. But then for some people, like they just don't know. I think there are some people out there who just don't know how much they should be paying for artists. And to have that conversation open with them, like you explain to them like, look, this is the reason why this is going to take this long, and this is why how much I have to charge this much. And they're more comfortable with working with you. Like they can trust you. Like you're not just going to run away with their money or do a terrible job.
Yeah.
Well, guys, it's 6:30.
Oh, we have a portfolio coming up soon.
We have
Oh,
portfolio
We're
reviews
We're gonna
at
need a break.
7.
Is anybody, Camille, you wanted to talk about something?
Well, I just thought it would be cool to end with how it helps to be in an active artist community, but we can save that for another
Yeah.
time.
We can talk about it real quick.
No, I think that's
it's just
fine.
helping you guys
It
right
helps.
now.
Yeah.
It's definitely helping, right? Like, talk to your peers.
Yeah, I agree.
There's
And-
no peers, no stepping stones, people around you.
Right, and that's what we talked about earlier. Like, don't just network up, right? Like, be mindful of the people next to you. These are the people you're going to be working with. These are the people that are going to be helping you.
And I guess for the art directors and cool people you do want to talk to, just don't come off as desperate and like a huge fan. Just be real chill. Treat them like any other person.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't ever go to somebody asking for something.
I literally asked this one guy if he would be my mentor. It's super cringe. Don't do it.
If he'd be your mentor?
Yeah,
I feel
and
like-
he said
I don't
yes.
know.
I
mean,
feel like that's
he did-
fine.
He
I've been
didn't-
asked.
No, but he didn't actually have like the time to do it, and I was disappointed. It ended up like causing a bit of disappointment because, like, I don't know, maybe he just said it to be nice or something. Anyway,
Yeah.
I just wouldn't do it.
And
'Cause,
that's
like,
so many, there's so many mentorship offerings now, you probably can find something.
yeah, exactly. Don't do it.
Do you guys have you want to end with like the best advice you've ever been given?
Oh,
I
God.
think Dylan's
Oh.
advice.
So many
Dylan,
advice. I don't know.
I live by this. I remember when you said, oh gosh, now I forgot. You said that motivation is fleeting, right? But discipline is always going to be there.
That's so
and,
dumb.
and I'm like,
It is
dude,
very
this is-
Dylan. And Moish, can I tell you something though? Like, I don't mean to disappoint you. I question that quite a bit sometimes.
No, but it's like I follow a psychologist, and he was talking about focus, and it's that whole thing of the discipline that you're talking about has more to do with tailoring our focus at the given time. So it's
It's
really
ha-
easy for our monkey
yeah.
brains to just like, let me go browse Facebook and next thing you know, you're playing video games. It's like if you can just like teeter that monkey brain towards the focus,
Can I-
then you'll stay in that path.
I want to clarify. Well, like when I say discipline, I don't mean go hard. Yeah, that's not what I mean.
No.
When I say
Focus.
discipline, I mean being mindful, like curating your habits,
Yeah.
right? Knowing why you're doing the things you're doing.
Like if you're
And-
gonna give yourself time to play video games, keep it to like an hour or whatever. Don't just-
Yeah, and like kind of look at your life and see, like, question the things you're doing, right? Like, is this thing that I'm doing really the best thing I should be doing right now? And a lot of times, like, you know yourself, like a lot of those questions can be answered, and it's like there's so many activities that you do throughout the day that you've been doing them just because it's habitual, and a lot of it you can change, and your life will get so much better just by like asking yourself, like, am I doing this because this helps me, or am I just doing this because I've been doing this for so long and I never even questioned it, right? And like when I say being disciplined, it's like when you start to kind of move the pieces around, changing your habits, you'll start to, I really like this. You're getting me started on this. I'm going on it right now.
Yeah.
We can talk about it in the portfolio review too.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
maybe I'll get to it, the rest of it there. But really quickly, like, discipline gives you freedom, right? And this is
It
a
does.
strange idea because for a lot of people, structure feels limiting, right? But for me, discipline means like managing my priorities, managing my time, and when those things are set for me, I am the time that I have off because I already did what I was supposed to do. I have so much freedom to like just do whatever I want, and I don't have to worry about all these other things anymore because I already took care of it, right? Like my life is so much better now that I'm not worried about the things I should have been doing.
That's some real shit, man. That's some real shit.
And yeah, and it's, I don't really mean force yourself to do things you don't want to do, but there are things right now that we can all kind of change in our lives to kind of make things a little bit better, a little bit easier. Like this is supposed to make things easier, not to make your life more miserable, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's a good way to.
Is it, we going to end on that? That's like a, I don't want the talk to be about that though.
We gotta take a break though, because we gotta know.
Yeah, we do have
Yeah,
to.
we gotta
Make
eat.
sure make sure y'all get enough sleep, because
Oh my
lack of sleep is linked to Alzheimer's. So
100%.
And
Oh, boy.
everything, lack of sleep, like the studies have said that it's less like eating and more like breathing. You can't go without it for too long. You're gonna die. Your body does not adapt well to no sleep.
I try to sleep 10 hours a night.
You do?
Oh my god.
Oh my god, wait, I sleep like
Whoa.
9.
Chelsea sleeps a lot.
Yeah, I
Wait,
sleep a
you
lot
guys
too.
both sleep way more than me.
I
I
sleep for 7.
I also
wake.
wake up to everything.
I think it's
though.
about quality sleep,
I'm a light
right?
sleeper.
Yeah.
I go sleep for like 10 years, okay?
It's not quality. I'm always tired. I should
Yeah.
sleep more. It's not quality at all. Right, I think
Well,
we
thanks
need to
so
go
much,
get
guys.
food.
Yeah, no,
thank
Camille,
you.
your stories are very inspiring.
Yes, you're a
Thank
very
you.
good, eloquent storyteller.
Thank you.
Thank you for the chance
Camille.
to talk.
So we'll be back, everybody, for the portfolio review.
We'll be back in what, 25 minutes?
Yeah, 25
Um,
minutes, and
In the channel above this one.
I feel like everyone's gonna be there. We'll get the whole
Really?
resolution team.
Yes. Oh yeah, we have
Oh,
like
that's
quite a
really
few
bad.
people reviewing. We're gonna have a full house.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
All
I'm
right.
gonna go.
See you guys in a bit.
Bye.
All right, thank
Bye.
you guys.